We're streaming.
Nice.
Good afternoon, guys. So, welcome to the Creative Youth Festival Fireside Chats. Now, we started these Fireside Chats about 2 weeks ago, and the first thing was to try and create conversations while we still have people sitting at home and looking to see what's going to happen with the creative industry going forward. And we're engaging different people from different facets of the arts and culture industry to see how everybody's moving forward, what they think the next steps are going to be, what are they doing in this uncertain time to try and keep their art alive, and at the same time try and inspire a new movement going forward. So I would like to introduce the first, well, I'd like to introduce our second guest today. We have Ernestine Deane, who is one of the music legends that I, number one, grew up listening to, being a very big hip hop fan, coming straight out of Cape Town. And it's a real honor to have this conversation with you today and to have you sit down with us and tell us about what you've been working on and where you've been. And we also have Jonno Sweetman, who is an amazing drummer and plays in some of the most amazing forefront, like, moving bands in South Africa, and has played abroad and on all jazz festivals, sort of everywhere. Very versatile, amazing drummer. I've followed the 21 days, 21 beats movement, and it's incredible.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Grover.
So can I just have you guys please just let us know about your journeys. Ernestine, with you first. When did you start, and sort of your journey leading up to now?
Wow, thank you, Karabo. I hope you can hear me okay. I seem to be having some connectivity issues on this side. So I'm hoping you can hear me.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Firstly, thanks for having me. It's really awesome to be part of this. And I must say, I'm sorry I missed your 21-day activity, Jonno.
No worries.
But what I've really appreciated in this time has been, I've appreciated just seeing so much creative content come from so many amazing artists and initiatives starting up. So it's been like a strangely creative time. So yeah, this is my 30th year in music professionally, because I started quite young. I was 16 in Grassy Park on the Cape Flats, and kind of started in hip hop with Black Noise in my early 20s, and moved on to Mood Phase 5 as their singer. Lived in Germany for a few years, but I've, even after the Mood Phase 5 heyday, and though we're not currently performing together, I've still been actively releasing music, collaborating with artists. I have a project called Dub for Mama. I have 3 very musical children as well. And I've always looked at the deeper aspects, I think, of music beyond entertainment, where it really is about a balm for the soul. It really is about connecting outside of what your culture is, what your language, the color of your skin. Those things have really interested me, that kind of spiritual depth to music. Yeah, that's, I guess, my introduction on my side today.
And I think that spiritual depth comes through a lot as I've been listening to a lot of your music still sort of going forward as well. And it comes through a lot in your lyrics and the way you write your poetry. And I want to delve into that a little bit later as well, in terms of where that writing comes from and how it can inspire the next musician who wants to sort of write from a place of honesty as well. Yeah, Jonno, would you mind giving us a bit of your background as well?
Yeah, well, for me, music was always a part of my life. My father was a musician, and he was always into music, but he was a minister of a church. So I grew up in the church from a young age. It was Sunday mornings was a Monday morning in our house, and only much later did I really pick up drums and try and play drums. So I won't say I wasn't 6 years old playing like Led Zeppelin songs or something. I started quite late. By the age of 20, 21, I started to really like focus on practicing and trying, you know. But it's that, I think for any musician, it's that, well, not for any musician, for me, you know, but I think for a lot of people, it's like, is this what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? Is this my career path? You know, it's quite a scary, daunting thing. And I mean, you know, I'm trying to think when that was. It was probably, yeah, it must have been early 2000s. I was born in 1980, so you can do the maths there. But, you know, so for me, that was still a time when it was very much choose a specific career path. Don't get too flaky, you know. And at least in the kind of way I grew up, and I just knew that this music thing was something that I had to pursue. And I remember the day when I don't remember the date, but I remember the day very clearly when it hit me. Like, it was just like, this is what you got to do. You're going to be a professional drummer. And I just remember the sheer terror. I was actually in Claremont. I grew up in Niceness. I was in Niceness, but I'd come down to Cape Town for something. And I was walking in the streets of Claremont, and it was this, I just remember floating around the streets, like, because I'd basically decided, like, I want to do this, like, no matter what it takes, you know. And it was the fear of the commitment. And if I look back at that, I'm still doing what I said what I said I must do, I set out on that path all those years ago, and I'm still on that road, you know. And I'm not kind of patting myself on the back for that, but I just think that the lesson I learned through this whole thing is to stick to things, you know, just grind it out, you know. It's so hard sometimes to not stick things out and commit to things, but it's weird. It's like, yeah, you never know when that breakthrough is coming, and it might not be a breakthrough that you think is. It's not always money. It's not always fame. It's not always. It can be something else. But sticking to something is rewarding. Yeah.
That's amazing, and that's one of the most important things that we're facing, especially as an artist, sort of getting into the industry the first time. As there's a certain level of self-belief that you have to have in order for you to carry on going forward. Otherwise, you face so many no's that if you don't have that self-belief, there's no way that you're ever gonna reach your goals, and there's no way that you're ever gonna create that piece of art that is gonna have people turning around and going, oh, so that's what Jonno was working on all of these years. And I mean, like, as a word of advice, do you guys have anything that you'd like to say to that one artist who's sort of sitting at home right now, waiting for that chance, waiting for that inspiration to hit them?
Yeah, you know what I'd like to add to what Jonno was saying, and what you're asking, it's not about waiting. It's never going to be about waiting, because you're in an industry where you're a creative. It's an industry that's changing right now, literally daily. There are innovations and apps and programs, you know, that'll come out of this that we don't even have names for yet. Maybe you'll be a part of creating those even. So you can't be waiting in an industry that's always going to be driven by yourself, because you're going to have the majority of the world, like Jonno was saying, say, it's not a real job, find something else. And I would say, don't wait. If you're, you know, like myself and other artists who started in their teens, don't wait until you have that piece of paper that says, okay, now you can go to college, and now you can, like, I literally, you know,
Lost connection.
I think we
it's
lost.
about you know, like understanding that music is intellectual property, learning how to register your music, you know, looking into all kinds of different streams, revenue streams that music can offer. So there's a lot of learning to be done parallel to you actually, you know, making that YouTube channel, putting out your SoundCloud, connecting with people, making sure you enter every competition, go to every open mic. There's no waiting in this industry for anyone, because no one's going to know you if you don't actually show up. And I think also your invitation into this industry and career can never be based on anything as flimsy as any accolades or fame or any of the stuff that at the end of the day, they're things that they are part of this world that we're in, but none of that is really the stuff that feeds you. none of that is really real. And it's so much hard work. You know, I've had the peaks and valleys in my career, and at the peaks, I can tell you also, it's like, you also just sometimes want to be just creating and not show up for like a list of the interviews that a manager has given you to show up for. You know what I mean? So I think this is probably the best time now that we're in to enter the industry, because people have an understanding now of like the true worth of art, and the importance of connecting with yourself and like reasoning behind why am I in this for the, you know, in the first place? Is it because I'm going to be making every day, like music every day for the rest of my life, or because I want to get noticed in life? So those are important questions from the get-go.
Yeah, that's really beautiful, like to actually ask yourself, why are you doing this? And because that's the question that's going to keep you going when things aren't working out, when things aren't going well. That's the one answer that's going to keep you waking up in the morning and still going to the next gig, or still waking up to create the next piece of music or to create the next piece of artwork. It's never going to be the fame. That's not what's going to keep you awake and ready to do it, right?
Right.
Yeah. Jonno, do you have anything to say to that? Like your advice?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly that, you know. I mean, you know, the 21 beats thing I did, because the initial lockdown was 21 days, 21 beats. So it was that no one really knew what we were in for. I mean, if we knew we were in for like this, however long it's been, I mean, I think we would have I mean, I can tell you now, those liquor stores would have been empty the first day. There's not a chance there would have been a dumpy left in a solid Krommers anywhere in Cape Town. But I think it's that thing of starting small, you know, like really just focusing on like the smallest thing you can do to start the process. And sometimes people don't, you know, when you decide, okay, cool, it's lockdown, okay, I'm going to start doing videos, and then you realize, oh, I've got a crappy phone. I don't own any microphones. And then suddenly it just starts piling up, and then it's over, you know, and then you go into a shell, and then you know, you might start practicing, and then you fumble on something you haven't been able to get right for a long time, and then suddenly you're in that loop of like failure, and it's just like, you know, and it's fully cool to go through those things. I mean, I do embrace sometimes when, you know, I don't feel allowed to swear, but shit comes in threes. For me, it comes in a lot more than threes. But when I see this sequence of when I feel this thing of life like pulling itself down towards the negative side, you know, I just let it take me down there, and I scrape myself out. But if I didn't make that small change right in the beginning, it could be the smallest thing. Like, you know, there was that guy that said to me 2 years ago, he said to me, if I ever need any mics, just give me a call. And it could be as much as spending the whole morning finding that guy's number and giving him a call. And then next thing he says to you, yeah, dude, I got like a whole drum pack mic. What's your address? I can send them, like I've got papers, you know. It just, things just start to happen. And yeah, so for me in my life, it's been this thing of like, start small, like super small. Like you don't have to play in front of 1 million people, 10,000 people in a stadium. You can do a gig for your mom and your gran in your room, and just get your songs cool, and just start strumming it out and make music and start, you know. And it's weird because you know, a small step for me now is I mean, if I think about what it could have been 10 years ago, that step would have been impossible. It's not even like, you know. So yeah, that would be my way of is just do, you know, if you can't, you know, I think there's so many different ways there's different thresholds. It's like pain thresholds. It's like these different thresholds. And I think people are in so many different setups and so many different, we're all in the same boat, but some boats are little paddle boats, some are cruise liners, some are, you know, so we've got to be realistic as well, and realize that there's actually no right and wrong, and no real kind of manual to making that first step, you know. and it could be the smallest thing, like I said, you know, just phoning someone, or going on Facebook and doing a search about one item or thing that you feel that you need to upskill on. It's yeah. So that's my, yeah.
I think that's a very important point to make, because that start where you are with what you have and take that very first small step.
Yeah.
And I mean, just to echo a few of the fears and conversations that the fears I've heard through conversations I've had with people, especially like a lot of the people who are under our program, is what is the next step as an artist? So now you've created this library, you've created your first EP, you're sitting in your bedroom, because everybody's now working on bedroom studios, right? So you've created your first EP, you've got this body of work. Do you still go to the label? Do you still do it that way? Is there another way of doing it? Most people want to go independent because, well, it seems like the new way of doing things now is just go independent. And both of you guys are doing work right now with Patreon, which sort of allows for you to be independent and to give a lot more, like it's a very good platform for skill sharing as well, because I know that both of you guys are running workshops and sort of teaching off of that as well. Is there anything that you want to sort of talk to about Patreon and how you could use that as another way for revenue stream?
Maybe Ernestine can elaborate on what she's doing with it. I think the connection's in and out, but my Patreon, I've set it up, but I'm still basically gathering. It's like it's a whole new world for me. So I've been gathering, you know, different packages and things. Like I'm thinking, as artists, we've got to figure out how to not only be able to do what we do on demand, and be able to perform live, and you know, if someone calls you and wants a Skype lesson, that you've got something to give, and you've prepared to be, you know, you'll never, it's almost that that thing of being prepared to be unprepared, you know, to feel on the, but as far as Patreon's concerned, it's new. I've set up the skeleton, and I'm still filling it with content. Maybe Ernestine can elaborate on what she's done so far.
Yeah, so I've been on Patreon for about 18 months. I struggled with my back and sciatica on and off, and I needed to look at how else I could bring in funds if I wasn't performing. So fortunately, in 2018, I already started with Patreon. I don't have many patrons. I have 13. But I mean, for me, it's like, it's a crutch, that because it's my only regular income right now. I have about just under 4,000 Rand per month coming from patrons. And what I love about Patreon is that it's for all creatives. It's not just for performers. You know, you could also be a teacher, or maybe you're an app creator, or you're making different materials or resources, or you called blankets, whatever. But so the idea is that instead of having a pledge situation where it's one project for a limited amount of time, it's an ongoing subscription thing. So patrons can, and it's about the more the merrier. So if there are 100 people giving you $1 per month, you know, or $2 per month, that obviously is cash in the bank. And your patrons would always be grow it. So I think the first few years for anyone on Patreon is not easy, because you kind of have to figure out what is comfortable for you to offer as up as content rewards for whoever is signing up to you with their patronage, because you need to, it can't be anything that puts further stress on you. So if you are a violinist who already is teaching on a platform online or whatever, it makes sense that one of your content rewards is that maybe it's a one-on-one, you offer something extra in lessons for people, and they're signing up for you monthly. It can't be something that's outside of what you're already creating. And then other artists they're literally just Patreon content creators. They're not even performing live anymore, really. Like Nate Mangard, he does the live streams only for his little Patreon hangout sessions. What I offer is I do there's a reward where people can be a fly on the wall in a rehearsal, or they can come like quarterly, they can come to a show for free with their partner. There's a birthday song made just for, so they sign up for different things. So that's been a blessing for me in this time, because obviously we're all madly trying to run around under lots of stress, trying to figure out how else now do we make money, when we don't have that that festival or the music venue and the people right in front of us. So I think that Patreon is an awesome thing for artists outside of the States also to really tap into now, and to slowly build their content page in terms of what they can comfortably offer and what people can afford to subscribe to.
That's amazing. It's a great way to sort of skill share, where you're giving a bit of yourself. You're giving a lot more of yourself and a lot more access to the patrons, to the people who sign up, who then, because I'm a person who believes that you have to create a niche, right? And you hold on to that niche, and that niche sort of grows.
So that's the other part of Patreon. What's awesome is that what's different is that what you create there. So I think I've just lost you for a second.
Hey, you're back.
You're back now? All right. I think we lost Ernestine for a bit.
So sorry, I lost you there for a second.
You're back. You're back.
I just wanted to add that the nice thing about Patreon is that it's meant to be an intimate platform where people are going to see a side of you that they wouldn't normally have access to in the normal artist world, on stage. Sometimes I'm literally, over Christmas on Patreon, I was sharing recipes of fruit cakes or mince pies or little traditions, things that I make, and like wreaths I was making. Sometimes you can just blog, or you can share like a very short video of a rehearsal of you literally on your bed, something that you've just thought of. It's a very personal and intimate thing for just those people, and they get to see you in a way that's very different to what you might present to, like, that glamour aspect of your performance world.
Very cool.
That's really cool. I can't imagine like having that access to an artist that you actually enjoy, whose music you enjoy. Then you really get to know who they are, what informs their thinking. And I think that's what Patreon kind of creates. And it's also a different way of thinking about how you contribute as an artist, where you contribute, where you stand, and how you bring yourself forward, I guess. Does it have a way of changing the way you think about interacting with your fans, where they're not just, there isn't this wall between you and them anymore? You've sort of broken that down and allowed them into your life a little bit. Yeah. All right, can we move on to, I want to talk about two very important things here, both of you guys. For Jonno, let's talk about how the 21 days, 21 beats program, the challenge that you were doing for the first day of the lockdown, what brought that about, and what was the outcome on the other end? Because I remember watching the video that you put out afterwards, sort of explaining what you learned in that process. You want to just go through that again?
Yeah. It was literally a thought. When the lockdown thing was announced, I just thought to myself, like, it just came into my head. It said 21 days. I'm going to do 21 beats. So it was like it was like an instant photograph. It just went in my head, and I saw myself playing a beat and videoing it, a short beat, and doing these 21 of these. So, and then obviously I had to try and figure out, like, once you're doing a video is cool, and I didn't make it super complicated. I had one angle, I ran it through. I didn't do heavy editing, but once you start that process, you realize how much work it is. And, it's, so I was really busy. Like, I think most days I would do the video and then edit, and by 5 o'clock I was done. It was like the whole day. Sometimes it would go quick and I'd try and do another one. But this whole thing started quite a while ago. I've always just done gigs. I've done wedding gigs. I've done, you know, giggy gigs in Cape Town. There's a whole bunch of gigs for jazz drummers around the city. There were always these gigs, different venues. It could be you know, Straight No Chaser was a club. Don't know if you guys remember that club. In I think it was in Hope Badenkamp Streets. It was kind of one of the, for me,
together.
Yeah. We did.
I think it
with Gorm. Was with Gorm, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So that was a cool place.
Right.
Yeah, that was a cool place because it was like when you got a call for that gig, you knew there wasn't really any money involved, but you could really play whatever you wanted. And so these gigs, then there was the wedding gigs where you kind of got to dress up and play sometimes music you don't really want to play. There's no real hectic artistic value in it, but I often just go into the human element when I do gigs like that. I go into the human element of things, and I realize that sometimes it's not always about the artistic nuance of what you're playing, but it's about the people. And if it's a really toxic environment, it's difficult. And then you've got to really try. And sometimes it is actually worth just leaving, you know, if it's not great. It's saying, look, keep your money, I'm out of here. But most circumstances, I have a way of just getting into the groove of things and playing cool covers and doing whatever. So there's these worlds of gigs that I had. And then I did a theater production. I think it was just before that. I got an inquiry to do a thing for Brett Bailey, Samson. He did a play. And just before that, there was this gap in my diary, and I'd done some cool. Went to Germany and played with Lionel Lewicki, who's a guitar player for Herbie Hancock. It was an amazing experience. So I had this little bubble of time. It was like 3 weeks where I didn't have any gigs, and I thought to myself, I'm just going to really try and invest in myself as a sideman. I'm going to and I just had this idea to do videos out in the bush and do them wherever. So I took my phone, I bought a Zoom recorder. I went out into the bush and I did a series of videos out in different locations that for me made, that were like these different flavors for me. So it's like, so I did one in the forest in Knysna, and then I did one along the in the Seven Passes in George, it was like along a water stream, and then I did one on the beach. Then I did these series of videos, and I was really like a starting point and end point to these. I did them and I rolled them out and I recorded them, and through that process, I learned how to record and how to capture something like that. And it was this, you know, this concept that I knew I could recreate at any moment, maybe in a different setting, and so the 21 Beats was based on that idea. It was just under lockdown. So there was I never really played a song, or I did actually play two covers, but it was never this thing of like too planned and it wasn't like playing over stuff that I'd rehearsed for weeks. It was very much trying to bring out one of my strengths. I think that was what I got out of it, and I explained in that video, was once you start saying, okay, like you said, Ernestine, I'm going to bake cookies today, and like that's actually a thing you can do, and it's really great. And like today I'm going to play drums just with my hands. Tomorrow I'm going to play like drums like a cool hip hop beat, okay, but today I'm going to play like atmospheric stuff. And I just try to pull everything out the toolbox. Like I literally just like let it all out there. And to conclude, after all of it was there, it's all this content that's there for free. You can get it on YouTube. I mean, on Facebook and Instagram. You can go and watch it. It's on my news. It's on my feed or whatever. And I haven't really made any money out of it. It wasn't something I monetized. It was just me creating and going for it. And the idea behind it is, it's there, it's free. It's like it's a piece of me, and I'm doing this for myself, but also just to let people see that all these facets of me, and there's some more coming. There's more stuff to come, and that was the idea, is to just sometimes do something like that, and then, you know, once things integrate, I'm going to lock them into things where hopefully I can monetize and start to earn money out of stuff I'm doing. But in that project, it was very much just to like let it go. Yeah.
I mean, that was amazing. Like following that entire project that you're doing, the whole, every day there was a different beat that are coming through. There was a different rhythm. And I remember saying in the video that you were struggling on some of the days. You didn't really know like how to actually, what were you, like what you were doing in the moment, and you just went with it. And I mean, there was one time when I can't remember, I think it was towards the end, I was sitting there thinking, what if somebody actually just took a bite of this and created something completely different out of it? Like another musician just comes in and goes, I'm going to take this and I'm going to mix it with this loop that I have and just create something. Like, I want to challenge whoever's watching. Go on to Jonno's Facebook.
Just do it. It's there. It's there. There's there's so many cool things, and it's free and it's out there. And I mean, look, it's also one thing I want to mention. I don't want to take too much time, but it's this thing of, as artists, we really have to understand that draw that line between, like Ernestine's been very cool to say that there's we own what we do. There's this intellectual property thing. We've got to really take pride in what we do. But there's times when you've got to give, and there's times where it's a very clear decision I make. There's no like gray areas. If it's something where you have to pay, then I'm going to do that. If this is just what I'm doing and it's free and let's go, then let's do it. And I think be clear with your audiences and be clear with people that want to follow you and be into what you're doing, is just be honest and clear with them, and just always trust in yourself. What you feel is worth it, put it out there, and if it's going to cost someone money, then do it and own it. And I think we've got to create these clear lines that people can understand. Okay, that's this thing, that's this thing, that's this thing, and really, it's, I mean, it might sound like you're manipulating or hurting audiences, but it goes beyond that. I think it's a thing of really taking control of what you do as an artist and being in control. And sometimes it is doing stuff for free,
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, the starting point of any inspiration, no one, unless you're commissioned to do something, when you're divinely inspired by something, because you're working with matters that we can't really quantify as inspiration and channeling or whatever it is you want to call it. No one goes into thinking, how much money am I going to make out of this? You know what I mean? And often it comes because you as an artist desperately need to, it's like finding another way of putting something out there. And at the same time, it can be inspiration for, you don't know what comes like 3 weeks or 6 months from now, where someone calls you, Jonno, and says, well, we have an online platform now, and people are going to subscribe for content. We really would love to license everything that you've created over those 21 days. And that's what I'm talking about, is that, like, that's the beauty of divine inspiration. There are times when we are most pressured or hurting or also just like elated or in love. It doesn't have to be like a heart sore situation, but where there's such purity in the starting point of that work that it looks after you. There's a line that is my WhatsApp status, and I think I'm not Christian at all, but it's from a biblical verse, I think, that says your gift will make room for you. And I really believe that. So yes, there's the difference between understanding the value in your gift and how you're going to look after it as a business. But those starting points of all your creations as an artist, whatever your medium is as an artist, always from here. It's always like, you don't think bank balance first. So I think it's beautiful. And I love this idea, Karabo, also of like building, like the building blocks on other people's creativity. Like I saw recently, my son showed me the Questa he's put out a challenge. I don't know if they've had that deadline yet, where he puts out a verse and then other rappers can add verses to it. And then, there's a 5,000 Rand prize. But, people are, it's amazing. I love collaboration and how things can you know, collaborations can happen in the strangest ways as well, just based on one person's inspiration a month ago in the bush or in the forest somewhere with a drum.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, like, some of the best art that we've ever had has come from collaboration, in my point of view, at least, is that it comes from a space where you're either collaborating with people who think the same way, like just getting thoughts and ideas from different people and creating one piece, or you're creating it with them and you create this amazing piece. Nothing ever works in isolation. I don't think there's ever been an artist who's done amazing work in isolation at any point. But
yeah,
both of you guys touched on a very important issue that I think a lot of artists also kind of deal with, which is intellectual property, which is becoming a business, you know, making sure that what you create ends up feeding you at the end of the day. And I want to just sort of dig deeper into that, especially into the idea of copyright and intellectual property. How do artists protect themselves? I mean, we know that there's Samro and Ernestine, we know that you are working with Tumsa. So can we get into Tumsa for a second? Because I mean, there's one line from the Tumsa site. I think it's part of the sort of running motto or vision of it is to help recognize South African musicians as specialist workers with skills vital to the South African cultural economy. That got me so excited, because I'm one person who believes that the South African cultural economy, it could be the next frontier for the economy as we know it, because we've gone through mining, we've gone through manufacturing, and as much as they're still staples of the economy, we have so much cultural beauty and heritage and art that we can export that is not being tapped into or fostered at all. And it is up to us and people who can actually see that there's a problem to fix it. So can you please tell us a bit more about Tumsa and the work that you're doing there?
Yeah, so Tumsa stands for the Trade Union for Musicians of South Africa. And that word trade there is very important, because as a labor union, you're separate then to being an association or an organization. It's about musicians recognizing that they are workers, even if you do not have an employee, even if also employer, even if you don't have like a full-time contract. You know, we work in an industry where things change from month to month, week to week for us, and you may be just a busker, but you're still putting kids through school type of thing. So there's every possible scenario of musicianship and, you know, professionalism within our music sector here. And the reason we came together, and we do work under the guidance of COSATU, because I mean, they're the labor giants. We run everything ourselves, but they, you know, we have their support politically. Is particularly now because we've been able to organize ourselves. You know, when you come together in membership, and now we have over 1,000 members. We've literally grown in membership by about 400, I think, in lockdown. Musicians are, firstly, audiences are understanding the value of music and how undervalued we had, you know, the music industry has been, how abandoned it has been in South Africa. And musicians are starting to say, oh my God, I've lost all my work. Wow, I have been a worker all this time. And just as the domestic workers have had to come together, no one did it for them, or the textile workers, no one did it for them. But within those groups, that, you know, in our group as artists, we had to come together, myself, Gabby LaRue, Vicky Sampson, a host of other musicians, to lead this, because we're not going to get it from arts and culture. We have, unfortunately, many ministries that are not at all represented by people who have walked the walk, who are experienced in the industry, who are passionate about it. So we feel that musicians we're the best ones to know what it is that we need, right? I mean, we have been boycotting for, you know, a copyright bill that makes sense for us as a developing industry. We've been boycotting for a decent quota of products, whether it's, you know, on radio or TV, that our music is not crushed by all the major labels and by international artists. So there's so many things that we've had to look at, and now we've had to urgently look at relief funds, because we have so many vulnerable musicians. And many of us are not in a position to go and get equipment or have equipment and live stream or even have data to tune into like an amazing platform like, you know, what you're creating, what many others are creating. So what we're pushing for, and it's looking very positive, is that we would be able to provide via government a relief fund of 3,500 per month for the next 6 months, which is minimum wage. It isn't even, you know, a ton of money, but it does mean that we know that our musicians are not going hungry, that the artists are eating. It's not rent money, but it's food money. It's food in the cupboard or whatever it is that you need to use it for. You know, so I'm proud of our work. We've been doing it for a few years, and I'm glad that there's a spotlight now on it, and more people are coming on board. And it's, you know, being part of a union is never about, it's not a show, it's not a performance, it's not spotlight. It's literally about working as an organism. As you know, we're only as strong as our membership, and so many people are getting this now and applying. And we're working super hard to make sure that government does not see a disaster, a global crisis, as an opportunity to ask for proposals and tenders. We have musicians who are depressed right now, who are really anxious, who, you know, their mental well-being is at stake, and they need to eat and they need to feed their children. So we will have news by next week as to when this rollout starts for these relief funds as a matter of urgency.
Yeah, that's incredible work over there, because there is right now such a huge standstill in terms of everybody performing, and you can't really make, I mean, I've heard conversations that are sort of going on in the streets where people are like, but you could just create stuff online. And I'm like, we are in a very different position in South Africa. You can't, our musicians, first of all, historically have not been taken care of. And now you can't expect them to somehow miraculously everything to change. It's even going to get worse now, and they're going to be the hardest hit industry so far, as it's happening and I wish that we had something similar in terms of the film industry as well, where we're seeing this huge hit that is happening. So it's like arts and culture as a whole, nobody's actually there to cradle it and to hold it up and to say, we're going to protect you and we're going to defend you. And like, thank you for all the musicians out there for the work that you are doing with Tumza.
I have to also just say thank you to the musicians who are understanding what the work is about. I think musicians we're such humble creatures. We love to do what it is that we do. We're the first there to raise funds. We're always asked to raise funds for everyone else. And now we're in a position where really, we also need that relief. We need those funds, you know, because literally our sector, the rug's been pulled out from under us. And we were the first hits because our sector is dependent on people coming together and not distancing socially, and on the tourism sector. So all, you know, and this, you know, obviously the film industry as well, the rest of the creative sector the same. So we're going to be the last to go back as well. And we need to know, we need to understand that if we're not employed because of disaster regulation, which obviously we understand this is a global crisis, but what this means then is that you are automatically employed by your government, and so your government must provide you with it's because it relates to our human rights. You have to be provided with relief funds.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just waiting to see what happens on the other side of this, and I really hope that all the help sort of comes through for all the artists out there to be able to at least just feed themselves so we can keep creating, because there is, I believe there's no nation without art. There isn't a real identity without art, without music, without paintings, fashion. There's no identity. You can't really create that national identity without it. Yeah. Do you guys have any parting words that you'd like to share? I see Jonno just got ready to say something.
No, I was just wiggling my back here. I'm getting the sun like beaming. It's quite nice. In parting, I wonder. I think going forward for artists, I think we everyone's waiting in bated breath on what the next move is, what's going to happen. But I think for the next, I mean, for the rest of this year, I think for artists, just because, I mean, for us, most of us, the winter season is a kind of a festival season. It's a season where maybe, you know, you start moving around. You know, there are some gigs around town, but I'm just talking from my personal, the way I have earned a living in the past. So the way I see it is now is just to really just spend time in coming up with mechanisms for yourself. So that's it can be small routines during the day just to keep yourself healthy. Like I do it. I do exercise. I do as much as I can to exercise. I need that for myself. And then just pinpoint these things, like what Ernestine is saying. Like it could be something reaching out to get a find out a bit more about the relief funds, joining things like. So do these things that just keep you healthy and keep you feeling like you're being proactive. Do those small things, and I think big things will come out of it after this is all said and done. And I think this for most music industries in the world, this is going to really, all those flaky guys that don't really do it for the right reasons and are not really, they're all getting shook off the, how can I say it, if you know what I mean, the analogy. It's like, I think the guys that'll stick through this are the other people that really want to do this and are really artists down to the core. And I can say I'm in it for the long haul, so I'm not going away.
I love that analogy of the tree, because that's exactly what it feels like it is right now. It's like they're getting everybody who's not in it for the love of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ernestine, are you gonna leave us with some sweet tunes as we head out?
I wanted to play something.
Yeah.
And it's something that it's very new and also inspired, you know, with the lockdown, and this kind of crushing feeling of what we're facing with, but also knowing that something new is emerging. Something new is emerging in ourselves. We're pushing boundaries and taking risks like we never have before. Besides finding different ways to connect, we're also connecting with ourselves. You know, there's some spiritual growth. And I think we've seen like the best and the worst of our country in this time. And for me, the best has really been to see the inspiration and the solidarity amongst our people and how we're coming together and how we're finding ways to still create, to feed other people, to remember our neighbor, you know, tap into the thing of inside of us as humans that need community, and we'll always find a way to create it. So I've been doing a show weekly on Instagram called Tea with E, where artists can just, you know, I have a guest, and I'd love to have you, Jonno, just to check in with people. You know, I do a couple of songs, but very basic, newly found guitar skills. But it's all been about just pushing and upskilling and, you know, showing up, like you were saying, Karabo, with what you have, which is just my phone and the phone speaker. And my acoustic instrument,
yes.
You know? So yeah, this is just a little something I want to share. What if I told you the world is changing, she's rearranging, and that's okay? What if I told you I know you're scared, but I will be there all the way? What? What if I assured you of how I adore you? What if I told you that I looked ahead now and I can confirm that it's okay, it's just a new way. Whoa, oh, 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 oh,
That was incredible. You literally just gave me goosebumps so badly right now. That was amazing. Thank you so much. For
hugs. Hugs. Thank you to both of you. Thanks for having me on the platform.
Thank you so much, guys, for sharing your time with us and with everybody that's out there watching, for sharing your knowledge. I think at this point, that's the most powerful thing that we can share amongst each other is knowledge and skills. And I truly do appreciate you guys taking the time to come sit with us and share what you know and share your experiences and help people out there also try and find it, get their next step and feel inspired to move forward. And I just want to say to everybody that is watching this video and will be watching this video after the live broadcast, that all the details that we've spoken about will be in the description below. We will put a link to Ernestine's Patreon in the description below. We'll put a link to Jonno's website and a link to tumsa.org. So please go check out all of these sites and support where you can and help us keep the art and culture industry alive and moving forward. Because again, there is no nation or there is no identity and way forward without art, without culture, without protecting our heritage.
Man.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much for joining me.
Thanks, Grubber.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.